Hello friends! Today we are gonna clone the UI design of X.com using Next.js. First, we'll create the responsive layout based on the original breakpoints of X.com. Then, we'll design the pages and components using the latest versions of React and Next.js. This is the home page. We'll create these sticky left and right bars and the feed component. We have the user profile page and the status page. I'll also show you how to use parallel routes in Next.js. We are on the user status page, but when I click this post button, it will change the URL and show this model. But we are still on the same page. If I close the model, we'll return to the previous URL. And you'll see how easy it is to implement using the Next.js app router. Finally, you'll learn how to upload images and videos and how to optimize them. We'll be able to edit our images, add a sensitive tag, and upload them in the most optimized way possible. In the next tutorial, we'll create the backend and fetch all the information from a database using Next.js server components and actions. So let me know in the comments what technologies you want to see in the next tutorial. I'll read them and start building the next part. If you want to see more projects like this one, please like the video. If you are ready, let's get started. Okay, I created here a new folder, and inside this folder, let's install our Next.js application. To do that, you have two options. The first one, you can open your console and write here npx create next app. I'll say dot and enter. We are going to be using TypeScript, ESLint, Tailwind. I prefer using source directory, so I will say yes. We are going to be using the app router. You can use new turbo pack for the faster development. I will not customize imports. And our application is ready. But if you do that, you will have some unnecessary codes and styles. You have to clean them. And also, we don't have any images we are going to be using during this tutorial. But I recommend you use my starter branch, because if you visit this GitHub page and open the starter branch, you will see this empty project. As you can see, no styles, no fonts, there is nothing inside the home page. We have some ESLint configurations and all the images that we are gonna need during this tutorial. So I will come back, delete everything and clone my project. If you want to, you can also fork this project. In this case, it's gonna create your own repository. So when you make any changes, you can push them to your own repository. As you can see, this is my test account. I can create fork. And after creating your repository, just come here and copy this URL. Of course, I'm gonna be using my own repository, my main account. By the way, this is an open source project. You can use it anywhere you want. So I would appreciate if you could give a star for this project, so I can create more open source applications just like this one. And at the end of the video, I'm gonna add here the completed version of the project, so you can compare your code using that branch. Okay, I will come here and copy. Let's clear here. Oops. And I'll say git clone. I'll paste my URL. I'll install everything inside this folder, so I'll say dot and enter. Okay, let's install our dependencies, npm install, and right now we can run our application. I'll say npm run dev. As you can see, our application runs on this port number. Let's copy this and open. And we can see our home page here. Okay, right now we can start building our layout. I'm gonna close here, open my source folder. Before getting started, let's see what's inside the CSS file. As you can see, we just have here the text color and background. We'll not use any special font family, so our application will be faster. And inside the layout, we have here a React node that basically represents all the pages inside this app folder. For example, this is our home page, and whatever I write inside this layout will be reflected on my home page. Of course, let's write it inside body. After this children, I'll save, and as you can see, it's here. So if I create different pages inside my app directory, let's create. I'll say test, and inside page.tsx, I'll create my component. I'll say test page, and if I visit that page, let's say test, as you can see, this is still here. So basically, we are gonna add all the common components inside this layout. Let's open our example. Actually, let's directly open x.com. And as you realize, inside our layout, we have three main sections: the left bar, the right bar, and the children. For the home page, it's gonna be our feed. For the user page, it's gonna be the user profile. So basically, this left and right bar will be visible for any page. So let's create our layout. I will come back. Let's delete this test. And inside the source, I'll create a new folder. Let's say components. And the first one will be the left bar, the right bar, and let's use them inside our layout. Let's delete here. Firstly, let's create our container, and it will include our sections. We have three sections. It's gonna be our left bar, right bar, and in the middle, we are gonna have the children. Let's see. Of course, we don't have the test page anymore. I will open my home page, and as you can see, our sections are here. Let's make them horizontal. Inside the container, I'm going to be using flexbox, and I will say justify between. So it's going to separate all my items just like that. But in our example, as you can see, we have a space here and here. And also we should consider the other screen types. If I open my console and shrink the page, as you can see, it changes our layout. At the beginning, we are gonna have only left bar and these children. And after a certain point here, we'll be able to see the right bar. So basically, we are gonna need different breakpoints. If you are using Tailwind, there are some default breakpoints. For example, if I say background red, and after the small screen, background blue, medium screen, let's say green, large screen, X large, and 2X large. Let me close this menu, and I will say, let's use this one. I'm gonna save, open my console. At the beginning, as you can see, it's red. After this point, 640, it's gonna be blue. Here, 768 is gonna be green. 1024 is gonna be pink. 1280 is gonna be yellow. And X large. But in our example, we are gonna be using different breakpoints. For most of the modern web applications, we are using these breakpoints, but X.com doesn't follow this common usage. Let me show you. At the beginning, we have just icons and our feet. And at this point, as you can see, something is changing and this breakpoint is 500. Remember, in our Tailwind layout, it's 640, but this time we are going to be using 500. And the second one is, as you can see, something is changing here. We have more space and this breakpoint is 600. So again, we are going to update our small screen. And after that, let's expand this more. And as you realize, after a certain point, we have a space here on the right and left, and it starts somewhere here. As you can see, after 690, it adds some space on the left and right. So we have another breakpoint. Let's find the other one. Here, 988. We don't have the space anymore. We can see our right bar. Let's expand more. And here, again, something is changing. We don't have any space anymore, and our right bar is bigger. I'm gonna expand, and in this point, as you can see, our texts are visible. They are not just icons anymore. Let me show you again, here and here. So our breakpoint will be 1265. But how we are gonna use these breakpoints? It's really easy. I'm gonna open my menu, find the Tailwind configuration, and I'm gonna add my new screens here. So inside the extent, I'll say screens. We are gonna write our screen name and the screen size. So I will say X small. It's gonna be 500. Here is gonna be small. Remember, it was 600. Let's say MD 690. I'll say large 988. X large 1078. And finally, XX large. You can give here any name you want. You don't have to follow this structure. So you can write anything, doesn't matter. And this last one will be 12. What was that? Let's check again. Okay, 1265. Right now, I can use my new screens. And since we are using here small, MD, large, X large, they are gonna overwrite. So it's gonna change the breakpoints. We can also use the X small and XX large. Let's try. I'm gonna close this menu. It's gonna be red, X small. Let's say large. And let's write XX large. I will come here, shrink my page. At the beginning, it's gonna be red. And right now, as you can see, after 500, it's gonna change the color. After this point, it's gonna be green. And finally, XX large. Okay. Right now, using these breakpoints, we can change the style of our layout. Let's see again. At the beginning, we are not gonna have any space on the left or right. There's a space here, but it's inside this menu. And after this point, we are gonna start adding our space. And our items will be centered. So let's come back. I'm gonna delete them. And here, I'll say maximum width, screen, and medium. And since our maximum width is MD, which is 690. At the beginning, our layout is gonna keep expanding, but after this point, after this empty screen, there will be space on the left and right. And in this point, again, we are gonna change our maximum size. This time it's gonna be LG. So let's come back. And I will say for the LG screen, maximum width screen will be LG. Let's see right now. By the way, our items are not centered. So I will say MX Auto. So it's gonna center our items and give a space on the left and right. It basically means margin left and margin right. This is the x-axis. Okay, as you can see, our items are centered. I'll open my console, shrink my page. This is the small screen, and until our medium screen is gonna keep expanding. But after the medium screen, as you can see, we have the space, and until our large screen here, it's gonna expand again. But after this point, we are gonna keep giving our spaces because our maximum size is this LG, which is 988. And after that, we'll do the same thing for the X large screen. As you can see, it's gonna be bigger again. And after this X large point, we'll have the margin left and right again. We are gonna be using X large. Just like that. And finally, we will do the same thing for the biggest screen. Let's see. It's gonna be our maximum size. And after this point, we are not gonna expand this anymore. Our size will be stable. And the maximum size. So let's see the behaviors of our sections. I'll open my console again. At the beginning, as you can see, we are going to have here a space. So inside the left bar section, I'll say px2. So it's going to give padding on the left and right, and they are going to be 8 pixels. I'm going to save. Actually, let's give background for each section so we can see better. And I will say 8 screen for the middle and right bar. Okay, we have a padding here. Let me zoom in. Just like that. And in our example, after the X small, as you can see, our space is bigger. So I'll say after X small, padding will be 4. So let's check again. I'm gonna expand. Don't worry about the other sections. We are just checking this left bar. I'm gonna expand. And in this point, again, we are gonna give a bigger padding. So I'll say XX large, the padding will be 8. And in our example, there is no space between the children and left bar, but in our example, there are spaces because we don't have enough content here. But I wanna fit my children inside this entire space. We are not gonna have any space on the left or right. Since we are using Flexbox, I can say Flex1, and it's gonna fit inside our container. There will be no space. So before this children, let's take care of our right bar. At the beginning, it's gonna be hidden. And in this point, let me expand. Here, it's gonna be visible. So I will say, at the beginning, it's gonna be hidden. And after the LG screen is gonna be flags. Hidden basically means display none. After the large screen is gonna be display flags. And also there is a space here between left and children. There is no space, but here we are gonna have this margin. So I will say margin left is gonna be 4. Just like that. And let's check again. As you can see, after this point, we have a bigger space here. So I will say after the MD screen, margin left will be 8. Okay, what about these children? Let's come back. At the beginning, when I expand my page, as you can see, it's getting bigger and bigger. But after a certain point, as you can see, it never changes. It's always stable. So after the large screen, its width will be stable. And it's gonna be 600 pixels. Normally when you design a website, it's not common to give a fixed size, but for this kind of social media applications, it's crucial because it's gonna be much easier to take care of your images and videos. You can optimize them, you can give fixed sizes. When we get started our images, you are gonna understand better. So I will come here and I'll say after the LG screen, minimum width will be 600 pixels. And also we have here a border on the left and right. So I will say border X. I'm gonna write here my specific number, which is 1 pixel. Let's give a color. Let's say gray for now. Of course, we cannot see because of this color. We don't need them anymore, I think. I can delete. Okay, our border is here. Of course, we are going to change the color, but for now, let's do one more thing here. Okay, we have a fixed size here, but according to our screen, we are going to increase the size of our right bar. We can use flags 1, and it's going to fit inside our container. Just like that. Let's give background again. As you can see, right now it's bigger. When we add here our icons and these texts, it's gonna be much smaller. But for now, we finished our breakpoints. So we are ready to take care of our left bar. But before, let's change our colors. To do that, we are gonna be using some custom colors. We have this blue color for the icons, and here our text color will be this gray color. So basically, we are gonna add these colors to our Tailwind configuration. Of course, you can come here and write your custom color, just like that. But doing this for each component is not a good idea because we are using this color here, 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 and for this blue. So instead of writing same colors again and again, let's open our configuration and extend our colors. By the way, we don't have any variable. Let's remove them. Firstly, I will say text gray. It's gonna be this color. We are gonna also have a lighter version of this gray. Let's say light. Just like that. We are gonna add our border gray. It's gonna be different. Just like that. We'll also have input gray. By the way, let's add here hashtag. And also, we are gonna have colors for each icon. As you can see, blue, green, this pink, and blue again. So I will say icon blue. green, and pink. Let's add them quickly. Just like that. You can find them in the GitHub repository. Okay, right now I can use my custom color here. I'll say border, and as you can see, border gray is here. I'm gonna save, and perfect, it's here. So this is how we define our custom colors and screen breakpoints. So let's take care of our left bar. I'm gonna close this menu here. And let's see what we are gonna have. We are gonna have here our logo, some menu icons and texts. We have the post button and the user information here. But at the beginning, we are gonna have only icons, the user avatar, we are not gonna have the information, and here is gonna be our small post button. And after the big screen, here we are gonna delete this icon. Instead, we are gonna write post, and we are gonna see our user information. Let's do that. I'm gonna come here, and firstly, I'm gonna create my sections, because the first one will include all our items here, except for this user, and the other will include our user information. I'm doing this because I want to give space between our items and this user. So if we have less items, for example, we are going to remove this one, this one, this one. So our menu will be smaller. In this case, we will be able to separate our items and this user. I will say user. And here is going to be logo, menu, and button. Since we are using Tailwind, reading our code and understanding our styles will be a little bit harder. That's why I'm using comments here. Okay. Firstly, I'm going to add here my logo. So I will say Next.js link. And inside, I'm going to add my image. Image. Of course, when we click on this link, we'll be redirected to homepage. I'll write here my source. Let's open our menu. Public, icons. And as you can see, our logo is here. Let's use it. Icons, logo.svg. I'm gonna give here description, width and height. Of course, not the shortcuts. Okay. And it's here. Let's write our user also here. And right now, I'm gonna separate them. The user will be at the end of our container. To do that, firstly, I'm gonna give here hScreen. So it's gonna contain the entire height. And there is something important here. If I scroll down, as you can see, its position is sticky, so its position never changes. And for this right bar, we are going to do exactly the same thing. I'll say sticky, and the top will be 0. So I can separate my items. Flex direction will be column, because our items will be vertical. And if I say justify between, they are going to be separated, just like that. Let's give a space here. Let's check. There is a space padding top and bottom, but this space is bigger. Just like that. Okay. So let's take care of our menu items. Firstly, I'm going to create my container. And again, it's going to be vertical. And for each item, we are going to have an icon and this text. To do that, I'm going to create here my menu list. Just like that. It's an array and it includes all our menu items. And each item has an ID, unique ID, name, link, and icon. let's use a map. Firstly, I'm gonna create my menu list. It's gonna be flex column, and inside I'll say menu list dot map, and for each item we are gonna create a div. Since we are using a map, we are gonna need a unique key for each item, and it's gonna be item.id. Actually, let's make this a link, because when we click them, we are gonna open our list item links. Of course, we don't have any, but anyway. So I will say item.link, and inside we are gonna be using our image. It's gonna be inside the icons folder, and item.icon. Let's say item.name, and I'm gonna give my size 24, height 24. And after this image, finally we can create our text, item.name. But remember, at the beginning it's gonna be hidden. It's gonna be only visible when the screen is XX large here. XX large is gonna be display inline, because by default span is display inline. And I'm gonna save. Let's see. Okay, our items are not horizontal. Let's give a class name here. Firstly, I'm gonna give a padding. Rounded will be full. I'm doing this because when we hover over, we are gonna see this background BG, and I'm gonna write here a custom color, just like that. I'm not writing this inside the Tailwind configuration because we are gonna be using only once. Okay, let's make them horizontal. Flex, align item center, and gap between our image and text will be 4. Just like that. Okay, let's do the same thing here, by the way. When we hover over, we are gonna see the background. Okay, I said we are using once, but we are gonna be using here 2. Let's separate our items here. Flex, flex column, gap between items, and the text will be large. I'll say item center. Okay, at the beginning, it's gonna be centered, but after seeing our text here, at this point, it's not gonna be centered anymore. So I will say XX large, items will be start. So they are gonna be on the left. Let's give a space here also. Just like that. And let's add our button. Remember, at the beginning, we are gonna have this icon, and after XX large, it's gonna be this text. So after this menu, I'll say button. Let's create a link again. After, we are gonna add here our new post page, but for now it can stay like that. I'll add my image. Icons post.svg. Let's give a size. And I'm gonna create one more, and it's gonna be our text. So at the beginning it's gonna be hidden, and if it's XX large, it's gonna be display block. Let's give our style. Again, there's a mistake here. Just like that. Firstly, I'm gonna give my background color. The text color will be black. Rounded will be full. Font will be bold. I'm gonna give a padding on the top and bottom. and on the left and right, let's say 20. Just like that. I will do the same thing for the mobile link. Let's copy this, paste here, but instead of this padding, I'm just gonna give width and height and center my image inside. Let me close this menu. And of course, we don't have font weight. And I will say if it's XX large, it's gonna be hidden. Just like that. Okay, awesome. What about this user? We are gonna have two sections, this user information and this button. And inside this information, again, we are gonna have two sections, this avatar and texts. Let's do that. I'm gonna create my sections. You can add here any image. I'm just gonna add dots. And inside this one, we are gonna have the image and texts. And inside texts, we are gonna have two spans. The first one will be the username and the handle. Okay, let's separate them. I will say flex, item center, justify between. And for the user information, I will do the same thing. And gap between avatar and texts will be 2. Let's add our image here. I'm gonna be using my public folder, general and avatar here. Username, Lama Dev. And we can fill inside the parent. In this case, I'm gonna give here width and height. It's gonna be relative, because if we are using fill, the parent should be relative or absolute. And I will say rounded full is gonna be a circle and overflow hidden. I forgot slash here. Let's make them vertical. But of course, remember at the beginning, we are just gonna have our avatar. We will not have the texts or the button. And after XX large, they are gonna be visible. I will come here and say hidden. And for XX large, it's gonna be block. I'll say cursor pointer, so we can click, and the font will be bold. And here, again, hidden, XX large is gonna be flex, but of course they are gonna be vertical. And for this span, I'll say class name, font will be bold. And for this one, text will be small. And I'm gonna change the color. It's gonna be text gray. Just like that. Let me shrink. Okay, perfect. Before going any further, let's take care of the most important part of a social media application: images and videos. It's so important because if you have a social media application, you will have thousands of users and they will post thousands of different images and videos. And if you don't optimize the media, your application will be slower. And also you will need more storage to keep your files. For example, here, if I inspect my image, you will see that its real size is 375 pixels. But it doesn't have to be that big in our storage because our image here is much smaller. Or if we use an image here, let's open our home page and add here our example. Post dot, let me check. Okay, here. And even if I give here, let's say 600 pixels and 600 pixels, if I inspect my image, you'll see that its actual size is more than 1000 pixels. So what we should do is, even if a user uploads a huge image, we should reduce the size, maybe reduce the quality a little bit, and store that image in the most optimized way possible. And also, we don't want to store all the media in the same server that our application runs on. There are different CDN solutions, but as you know, I use ImageKit for the media uploading and optimization because it has a really generous free tier. You can store tons of images for free, and also it allows us to transform our images and videos in real time. As you can see, the only thing we should do is change the image URL and add here the options. We can also change the quality, add a text or logo. There are also tons of different features. If you are interested, I created a video about ImageKit. You can find the link in the description. And for this tutorial, when we start building, you will see how easy to use it. If you don't have an account, click the link in the description or visit imagekit.io and sign up. After that, you can see your dashboard. You can drag and drop your files or upload them using this button. Actually, let's upload all our media here. Okay, they are here. You can use different folders for each category. For example, when a user uploads a new image, we'll store them inside the posts folder. But for now, let's use this example. As you can see, it's more than 2000 pixels. Right now, I'm gonna use this image using ImageKit component. Open the documentation. Let's choose Next.js. And let's see how to use it. We already have our application. I'm gonna install ImageKit next. Let's copy here. Open our console. Let's create a new one. npm install imagekit.io next. Okay. After that, we are going to create an env file and store our public and private keys. Let's copy this. Inside the root folder, I'm going to create a new file and let's say .env. I'm going to paste it here. I'm going to close this. And let's take our public and private keys. To do that, I'm going to open my dashboard, URL endpoint, and let's copy this, paste here, open the developer options. As you can see, public key and private key is here. Let's copy them. Let's remove this slash and this private key and copy this private key here. And don't forget, you shouldn't use your private key on the client-side components. That's why we are not using here next public. We are gonna use it when we fetch or upload any file. Okay, I'm gonna close here. After that, instead of this image, we are gonna be using ImageKit component. Let's open our documentation. We are gonna be using this image component and it's gonna render an image tag. And using this component, we'll be able to transform our images. Let's see how to do that. Firstly, I'm gonna get my URL endpoint. And don't forget, if you are using this image component, your parent component should be a client component. Of course, in the homepage, we are not gonna be using client component, but for now, for the test purpose, let's write here, use client, import our endpoint, and add ImageKit domain to our Next.js configuration. Because remember, by default, Next.js doesn't allow us to use any external images. So I'm gonna copy here, open my Next config, And inside this object, I'm gonna paste my option. And after that, we'll be able to use this domain. Because remember, all the images inside our library uses the ImageKit domain and our endpoint. If I copy and paste here, as you can see, our endpoint, category name, and the image name. Okay. After that, we can import our image component. Let's close here, import, and use it here. And inside, we are going to pass our endpoint and path. Remember, this is our path. Let's use it. And here, we can pass our sizes and the description. Let's say 600, 600, and the description will be test post. And it's not here because our path is general and post, just like that. And also when users upload a new image, you can automatically change the format and the image quality. Let's come here, open up the settings and optimization. And as you realize, ImageKit automatically selects the best format to deliver images. You can disable this, but I recommend you keep this on. And also, you can change the default quality. And let's see how to transform our images. I'm gonna scroll down. You can also pass here the image URL using source instead of path. So you can use a custom domain. And also, instead of writing this URL endpoint again and again when you use this component, you can wrap your application with this ImageKit provider and pass your URL endpoint. And after that, you'll be able to use your image component without using this endpoint. You can directly use your path or source and give your size. But let's do something different here. Instead of using this component on our pages and components, let's create an image component. I'll say image.tsx. I'll create my component and use my image component here. Just like that. And right now, I can use client component here and take my image source, let's say path. We can take the width and height. We can get the description. We can also get the class name from the parent and apply them here. Of course, let's add our prop types. I'll say type, image type. It's going to be an object. We'll pass our path. It's going to be a string, width, height, description, and the class name. But they are not required, so I'm going to use question mark. Just like that. Let's use them here. And pass them inside my component. Of course, we need our URL endpoint here. I'm gonna cut this, paste here. I'm gonna add my sizes, description, and the class name. Of course, description cannot be empty, so let's make this required. And right now we can use our image component here. In this case, we don't have to use a client component here. It can be a server component, and let's import our image component here. This time we are going to be using this component, not next image. Let's add our path. Width, height, Let's come back, open our app, and again, I forgot my category name. Just like that. And if you inspect your image here, you can see that its size is 600 pixels and the file size is 77 kilobytes. And in our media, our original post is more than 500 kilobytes. So this is how you can optimize your images. Let's click here and open our image. And this is how you can manipulate your images in real time. You can just change your URL. You can add different options like quality, let's say rotation, 90 degrees, just like that. You can find all the manipulation options here in the documentation. And inside your image component, you can also use transformation. As you can see, inside this object, you can give height and width. But remember, if you are using transformation, the parent of this image component should be relative, absolute, or fixed, because when you use it, it automatically applies fill true. Remember, when you use Next.js image and fill true, you have to use a parent div. Let's try. I'm gonna come here, transformation, I'm gonna create an array, and the width will be our width and height, but there is a problem here because our value should be a string. So let's use it just like that. And here I'm gonna save, and right now I'm gonna create a parent. I'm gonna give my position, width and height. I'm gonna save, and our image is here. And right now its position is absolute and its size is 600 pixels. So when a user uploads a new image, we are gonna transform them and its width will be 600 pixels. So even if they upload a huge file, we are gonna store them as 600 pixels. Of course, there's an overflow here because we are using border. But anyway, it's just a test. So what we can do here, we can write a condition because you might not want to use transformation for each image. So let's take here a boolean. I'll say tr. Let's use it here. And I'm gonna write a condition here. I'll say if the transformation is true, we are gonna be using this object. If not, we are going to be using width and height. So I'm going to destructure and write my condition. If tr, we are going to destructure our transformation. That will include our width and height. And if not, we are going to destructure directly width and height. Just like that. So we don't need them anymore. Okay, so whenever you use transformation, you'll need to use a parent. Okay, let's remove them and close this console and change our images here. I'll open my left bar. Right now, I'm gonna delete this image. Instead, we are gonna be using our image component here. Components and image, and we will pass here our path. Names will be exactly the same, and this time we are going to be using shortcuts, just like that. And here, and finally here. Instead of this fill, you can give any number you want, let's say 100 and see. And I'll say transformation true. and they are here. Okay, perfect. Of course, you can change the size, but they can stay like that. So let's take care of our feed section. Let's see what we have. We have here feed options, share component that we can write a post, choose a photo, and after that we are going to have our post feed. Let's create. I'll come here, close everything, and inside the components, let's create feed.tsx. And let's use it inside our page, home page. I'm gonna remove this and use my feed component. But before, we are gonna have this share component. Let's create. Just like that. And before this share component, let's create our options here. I will come back, create a div, and let's create a next link. The first one will be for you. Let's give a class name. Firstly, I'm gonna give a padding and separate my items. And as you realize, we have here a border button, and I'm gonna change this color. In the parent, firstly, I will separate my items, justify between. Text will be text gray. Font will be bold, and I'll say border bottom, and it's gonna be 1 pixel. Let's give a color. And for each link, I'm gonna give padding bottom. Let's center this. And I'm gonna give border bottom. Let's say 4. And its color will be, remember, we have the blue color. It was icon blue, I think. Okay, here. Just like that. Let's give a space here. And on the top, 4 and padding top. So let's create our other links. But this time we are not going to have our border. I'll say following. Let's create 3 more options. I'll say React.js, JavaScript, and let's say CSS. Just like that. Let's create our first post, and after we will take care of the share component. Inside a post, we'll have this image and the post section. Let's create this post first. And use it inside our feed. I will create a couple more, and let's come back. And firstly, I'm going to create here a component that shows our post type, because it can be a normal post or repost. And as you realize, we have a border for each post and padding. So I will come back. Firstly, I will give a padding, and I will say border Y and 1 pixel. Let's change the color. And firstly, we are going to have the post type. Let's create a span. After, we are going to add an icon. Let's say Lama Dev reposted. And we are going to have here an icon. For now, it can stay like that. I will say flex. Item center. I'm going to give a gap. Text will be small. It's going to be gray. Actually, text gray. And I'm going to give a margin here. And the font will be bold. Okay, so let's create our content. We'll have 2 sections, this image and post. After this type, I'll say post content. Let's create a container. I'm gonna separate my image and the post texts, just like that. And let's create our image. I will call my image component path general avatar.png. I will give my description, width and height, let's say 100. And transformation will be true. And remember, if you are using tr, the parent should be relative. I can give any size. Our image will be rounded. So I will say overflow hidden. Just like that. And after that, let's create a container for the post. And in the top section, we'll have the user information and this button. So after this image, I'm going to create a div. Actually, let me close this AI extension. It can be confusing. Okay. Let's create our top div. I will actually say image or avatar, content, top section, and inside we'll have the info. And for this button, we are going to be using a client component because there are tons of interactions here. So I'm going to come here and let's say post info. Inside, I'm going to create an image. It's going to be icons, info more.svg. Let's give a width and height. I can say cursor pointer, so we can click width and height, and I will say relative. Let's use it here. And here, we'll have the username, user handle, and the date. Let's say h1, username. Let's create a span, the handle, another one, and let's say 1 day ago, or the date, doesn't matter. Let's separate them. Flags item center, gap is gonna be 2, and I'll say flags wrap, because if we shrink the page, as you can see, it's gonna move them to other line. So it's not gonna overflow. Let's do the same thing for this container. I'm gonna separate them. Our button will be here. Flags, item center, justify between. And in any case, I'm gonna give a gap. And let's change its width. Remember how we are doing this. After this image, we have the content. If I say flags1, it's gonna fit inside our entire container and its size will be bigger right now. Let's take care of them. For this h1 tag, tags will be MD and the font will be bold. And for those spans, it's gonna be text gray. Just like that. And after that, we can add our content. We are gonna have a text, video or image here. After this top section, I'll say text and media. Let's create a div. Actually, we can directly write our text and image. I'm going to generate a random text. Let me close this menu. And after that, we can add our image. our sizes. For now, I'm gonna give 600 and 600. After learning how to upload images, this height will be dynamic. Okay, perfect. And let's give a space here. Actually, we can use flex column because we also have here post interactions. We can give space here also. So for this content, I'll say flex column, and gap between items. Okay. So let's take care of our interactions. As you can see, these two items are together. So let's create two sections, the first one and the second one. Of course, it should be a client component. We'll have tons of different client-side interactions. I'll say post interaction. Use client. I'll create two divs. Firstly, I'm gonna separate them as we always do, justify between, and I'm gonna give margin on the top and bottom, and the text will be text gray. But there is something important here. As you realize, when I hover over, we see different colors: blue, green, pink, and the others will be blue again. So instead of using an image here, let's use SVGs and change the colors. Let's start with this one. If you check your public folder, you are gonna see this SVG folder. Let's choose this command, copy this, and create our first item. I'm gonna paste my SVG, and after that I'll say any number here, doesn't matter. Let's use this component here. After this image, okay, our SVG is not here because we don't have any color. I will close this menu, and inside this path, I'm gonna give a class name, and I will say fill text gray, and when we hover over this parent, we are gonna change its color. To do that, I'm gonna use here a group, and if I say group hover, its color will be green. Remember, we have the icon green here. Let's see. If I hover over, okay, perfect. I can also change the color of this text. I'll do exactly the same thing. Let's say span actually. And this time it's gonna be text and color. I'll also make this smaller. Perfect. Let's make them horizontal and give cursor. Just like that. Okay. So let's create the others. I'll say commands. Let's create the others. 3 more. Here is gonna be repost, like. Actually, we don't need these stats. I will open my menu, and inside the SVG, as you can see, repost is here. Let's copy this. Actually, we can copy this string and paste it here. And its color will be, let's check. Oh, this is gonna be green. This is gonna be blue. Let's change. Okay. I'm gonna change this text also. And let's do the same thing for the other one, which is like. I'm gonna copy here. Repost, and here is gonna be like. Just like that. I'm gonna delete this one. We don't need this. And here is gonna be pink. Okay, let's separate them. I'll say flags, item center, and justify will be between. And let's add other icons here. I will do the same thing, flags, item center, and gap between each item will be, let's say, 2. And inside, I'm gonna create my SVGs. And their colors will be blue. Let's find them. Save. And I'm gonna change here. It's gonna be share. Of course, we should click on them. So I'm gonna create parents. And of course, I'll say group. Okay, awesome. As you realize, the size of this container is the maximum width of the content. To prevent this, we can give flex 1, so it's gonna fit inside our container. Just like that. But there is no space here. Let's give a gap. Okay. And I'm gonna change this icon. I'm gonna come here, copy this, and inside the post, I can change this icon. And its color will be our gray color. Let's change the width and height. Okay, this is the wrong icon. It's gonna be repost, of course. Okay, awesome. Let's open our console. As you can see, this space is too much. Inside the interaction, I'll say gap 4. If it's LG, gap 8, X large, gap 16. Or we can use it before this LG. Okay. So we finished our feed component. So let's take care of the share component. I will come here, close everything, and open my share component. Let's see what we have. I'm gonna open my X application, and again, we are gonna have 2 sections, avatar and the content. And here we are gonna have an input, some icons here, and this button. Let's create. I will say avatar. We'll do exactly the same thing here. Image, avatar PNG, let's say TR, and the parent. It's gonna be rounded. and overflow hidden. Let's give a space, padding, and separate our items. Padding 4, flex, and gap 4. And after this avatar, let's say others, I'm gonna create my container, and inside we are gonna have our input, placeholder, and let's say what is happening. And again, it's gonna be flex 1, and I'm gonna separate my items using flex column and gap 4. And after this input, I'm gonna create one more div, and it's gonna include two sections, our icons and this button. So let's say icons div and our button. I'll say post, class name, I'm gonna give background, and text color will be black, font will be bold, rounded. I'm gonna give padding on the X and Y axis. Okay, there's something wrong. There's a typo here. Text. Okay, let's create our icons inside this div. I'm gonna create my image. Let's give our width and height. It's gonna be 20. And I will say class name cursor pointer. And the first image will be icons image.svg. Give poll emoji schedule and location. I'm gonna save. Okay, they are here. Let's separate them. Firstly, I'll say flex, item center, justify between. In any case, I'm gonna give a gap. And again, flex will be wrap. So when we shrink our page, we are gonna move our items. They are gonna be vertical. And for those icons, flex, gap will be 4. Again, flex, wrap. I will open my console. Just like that. And also I can delete these tags. I'll open my feed component. Okay, it's not here. It was in the home page, I think. Okay, I'm gonna choose these 3 items. I'll say hidden. If it's empty, they are gonna be visible. Okay. What about this input? Class name. Firstly, let's delete our background. It's gonna be transparent. Outline will be none. And I'm gonna change the placeholder text color. Text gray. And it's gonna be bigger. Just like that. And right now we are ready to upload our images. When I click on this button, we'll be able to select our image and show it here. To do that, I'm gonna open my ImageKit documentation, uploading files. And as you can see, to upload file, we are gonna need a backend server because when we try to upload file, we have to be authenticated first. So nobody else will be able to upload files without our permission. Let's copy this and install. But there is something important here. Let me open my application and select an image. I'm gonna select this one. And as you realize, when we select any image, it doesn't upload it immediately. Instead, it shows here the preview version of our image. If I right click and open this image, and as you can see, it doesn't come from the X server because it's not uploaded yet. We can write any text here or we can edit our image. and only after clicking on this pause button, it's gonna upload our file. So basically, we are not gonna upload our files as soon as we select any image. So what we can do, we can select any image, we can get our input text, and when we click on this pause button, we can upload our image and send our post to our database. To do that, we are going to be using Next.js server actions. And since we make all the backend operations in the server actions and server components, we don't have to create any API and create this endpoint. Instead, using this ImageKit instance, we can directly upload our images in the server actions. But let me show you how to upload files on the client side. After creating your endpoint, you can create this authenticator function and make a request to that endpoint. If your credentials, which are public key, private key, and the endpoint is correct, it's gonna send this authentication token, and after that, inside the ImageKit provider, you can use this upload component and upload your files on the client. So basically, you can use this component if you want to upload a media as soon as you click on this icon and select your media. But as I said, we are going to be using our server actions and upload our media on the backend. So I will come back, uploading files. And since we are using a backend, we can directly use this Node.js SDK. Let's scroll down, file upload. And as you can see, after creating our ImageKit instance, we are going to be using the upload function and pass here our file. And it's going to return either an error or the successful result. And we can show them here. And as you realized, during the uploading process, we can transform our images and we can add here our image size, which is going to be 600 pixels. We can add any logo, we can change the quality or whatever you want. So firstly, let's select our file input, and after I'm going to show you how to upload files. So using this button, we are going to call our file input. I will create here input, type will be file, and when we select any image, we are going to store that file using our media state. So let's say media, set media, use state. At the beginning it's going to be null. Let's write here its type. It's going to be file or null. And when we change our file input, we are going to update our state. Actually, let's directly write here a function, handle media change. Let's create this here. And I will say if event target and a file exists, we are going to set our media. Let's write here equal, and our type is going to be React change event, and the type will be HTML input element. Of course, firstly we should check if it's a file or not. After that, we are going to update our state. I'm going to save, and since we are using a state, our component should be a client component. As you can see, our file input is here. I can click and select any image, but I don't want to see this input. Instead, when we click on this button, we are going to open our folder. To do that, let's hide this file input. I'll say hidden, and I'm going to give here an ID. Let's say file, and using label, we can add here the ID of the file input. And if I wrap this image icon, when we click on it, it's going to trigger our file input. Of course, here is going to be our ID, which is file, I'm gonna save. If I click, as you can see, we can select our image. And right now we have the image, we have the input. So let's create our server action. Of course, it should be a form. I'm gonna change here. And I will say action. Let's open our menu. And inside the source folder, I'm gonna create a new file. And it's gonna be actions. We are gonna be using here use server directive. So everything inside this file will run on the server. I'm gonna create my first action, export const, share action. It's gonna be an async function. And let's get our file and the description using our inputs. To do that, we should give here a name, let's say description. And for this file name, let's say file. And use our action here, share action. Just like that. And if you are using form actions, you can directly reach your inputs using their names, description, and file. So I'm gonna get my form data here. Its type will be form data. Let's get the file, form data.get, and the name of the input, which is file. And its type will be file. Let's create one more, and it's gonna be our description. And it's gonna be a string. Let's console log them. File and description. I'm gonna save, open my console. I'll say test, choose my image. I'm gonna send. And as you can see, our file is here and our description is here. So right now we are ready to upload our file, and in the next tutorial we are gonna send this post to our database. But for now, let's just upload. I'm just gonna comment this out. We don't need this for this tutorial. Firstly, I'm gonna create my ImageKit instance. Remember how we are doing this. We'll be using ImageKit library. And using our keys and endpoint, we'll create this instance. Let's import, just like that. And let's check our keys here. Public key, URL endpoint, and private key. Okay. So right now, we can use this ImageKit and the upload function, and we are gonna pass here our file. As you can see, it can be an URL binary or base64. So I cannot pass my file just like that. It should be string buffer or read stream. Let's transform this first. I'm gonna create a buffer. Firstly, I'll say const bytes await file dot array buffer, and the buffer will be buffer from bytes. And right now I can pass it here. And after that, we are gonna pass our file name. It's gonna be file.name. We can choose our folder. Remember, at the beginning, we created our category, which is posts. We can use it. Just like that. And remember, we can transform our image. We are gonna transform our image while uploading. So I'm gonna use pre, and let's say with 600. We are gonna change here later. It's gonna be dynamic, but for now, for the test purpose, it can stay like that. And here, remember, it can be an error or result. Let's copy this and paste. just like that. And let's see what we are gonna have. I'm gonna open my console. Let's choose this image. Remember, this is 800 pixels. I'm gonna click. We don't have to write anything. I will post. I will come back, and as you can see, our image is here. And as you realize, its size is different. Let's see. I'm gonna come here, and our image is here. Okay, awesome. This is how we upload files. But also, we should be able to edit our files. As soon as I select my item, I want to see it here. Let's do that. I will come back, close this terminal and menu, and inside the share component, firstly, I'm gonna create my preview URL. And I will say if there is a media, it's gonna be url.createObjectURL and media. If it doesn't exist, it's gonna be null. Just like that. Basically, it's gonna create a preview URL and we'll be able to see it here without uploading our file. So I will come here and under my text input, I'm gonna create a condition and I will say if there's a preview URL, show here our image. Firstly, I'll create a div. It's gonna be our parent. I'll say rounded x large and overflow hidden. And inside, I'm gonna create here an image. But since we are not using our ImageKit path, let's use a Next.js image. I'll say next image. It's not important because it's just a preview image. I'll say source, preview image. I'm gonna give my width and height. And let's see. Okay, perfect, it's here. If I select different image, it's gonna be here. Right now, I can create here a button that we can edit our image. I will come here. Let's say preview image. And inside this div, I'm gonna create my button and let's say edit. Its position will be absolute, top 2, left 2. So we'll see it somewhere here. Let's change the background color. It's gonna be black. And also I'm gonna change its opacity. It's gonna be 50%. I'll say text white. Let's give a padding. I'll say rounded full. Font will be bold. Text will be small. Okay, and also we can click. So I will say cursor pointer. And perfect. So when I click here, I'm gonna open my image editor. So let's create another state here. And I will say is editor open. Set is editor open. And at the beginning, it's gonna be false. And let's open our components and create here our image editor. Right now, I can write my condition. I will close this menu. And if it's open, and if we have the preview URL, we are gonna show this component. So I will scroll down, and here I'll say if it's open, and if there's an URL, show here the image editor. So basically, we are gonna show here a model that we can edit our image, and of course, there is gonna be a close button. When we click on that button, it's gonna be closed. So I will say on close, set is editor open and it's gonna be false. And also we are gonna pass here our URL, just like that. And finally, we are gonna send our settings. At the beginning, the size of our image will be the original size, but inside the editor, we'll be able to choose the wide and square options. Let's try. I'm gonna choose this image, edit. As you can see, this is the original image. It can be wide or square. Let's do that. I'll say const settings, set settings, use state hook, and it's gonna be an object, and inside we are gonna write our size type. At the beginning it's gonna be original, and also I'm gonna add here one more item, and it's gonna be sensitive. At the beginning it's gonna be false. So basically, if our media is sensitive, we are gonna show here a blur overlay. It's not gonna be visible. Let's write our type here, actually. I'll say it's an object. Type can be original, white, or square. And the sensitive will be Boolean. Okay, let's pass our settings and set settings. Just like that. Let's get our props. I will open my component. I will say on close, preview URL, settings and set settings. I'll write my types. On close will be a function. Preview URL will be a string. Settings, again, it's gonna be this object. And set settings will be, let's see its type. I'm gonna hover over, as you can see, React dispatch and set state action. I'm gonna copy here and paste. There's a typo here. So let's give our style. It's gonna be a model. So I will say position fixed. Firstly, I'm gonna create a container that contains all our screen. So I will say full screen and full height. Left will be 0, top will be 0, and the background color will be black. Let's reduce the opacity. It can be 75. It will be over everything, so I will say Z index, and I'm gonna center my model. Let's create our model here. Another container. I will say background black. Rounded will be X large. I'm gonna give some padding, and all our items will be vertical. So let's say flex column. And gap between each item will be 4. Let's say test, and let's see. I'm gonna click, choose an image, edit. Of course, we didn't write our click event here. I'm gonna scroll down. By the way, it's gonna be lowercase, of course. And here is gonna be uppercase. And when we click on this button, we are gonna update our state. Is editor open will be true. Let's try. I'm gonna choose again, edit, and as you can see, our model is here. And the overlay is black, and there is an opacity. Okay, let's create our items inside this model. I will come here. Firstly, we are gonna have the top section. We'll have the image, let's say image container. And we will have our settings. Firstly, I want to show my image here. Let's say 600, and height is gonna be flex and align item center. Let's create our image. I'm gonna be using Next.js image because we are not storing our image. I'll say source, preview URL. By the way, here is gonna be uppercased and here. Okay. Let's give our size. Of course, we are using Next.js image, width and height. And using our type, we are gonna change the image style. So I will say class name. I'm gonna be using backtick here. In any case, its size will be full, but inside we are gonna have our condition. I'll say if settings dot type equals original, the height will be full and the object will be contained. If it's not, we are gonna check again if settings dot type equals square, the aspect will be square and the object will be cover. And finally, if it's wide, the aspect will be video and the object will be cover again. Okay, our image is here. Let's create our button and our title. Inside this top container, I'll say flex, item center, justify between. And we'll have here our back SVG. I'm just gonna copy and paste. And when we click on this button, we are gonna close our model. I'm gonna save, and as you can see, it's here. If I click, it's gonna close. Okay. Of course, it can be cursor pointer. Okay. And here, let's write our title. I'll say H1, media settings. Font will be bold, and text will be X large. Of course, not inside SVG. Okay, actually, it's gonna be here, and we are gonna create here a button that we can save our image. So I'm gonna create here a container and wrap my SVG and this title, and after them, we are gonna create a button. And I'll say save. I'm gonna give my paddings. Rounded will be full. Background white. It's gonna be black text and the font will be bold. Just like that. Let's separate them. Flex, item center, and gap. Okay, awesome. Let's create our options here. Again, I'm gonna separate my items, but this time the text will be small. Flex, item center, justify between, and the text will be small. Again, I'm gonna create a div that includes our types, original, white, or square. And on the right side, we are gonna create a button and it's gonna be sensitive. I will do exactly the same thing here. 8, we'll have our options, type options, and after that, we are gonna have the sensitive option. And inside the class name, I will say cursor pointer, py, px, rounded will be full again. But here is gonna be a condition. I'll say if settings dot sensitive, its color will be red. If not, it's gonna be white. And let's also say text black. Okay. And when we click on this button, we are gonna update our state and our image will be sensitive. So I will come here and say on click event, handle change sensitive. Let's create this function here. I'll say sensitive. It's gonna be a boolean. And I'm gonna set my state here. We are gonna take the previous values, destructure them, and change the sensitive. In this case, we are gonna need this param here. And we are gonna pass the opposite of previous sensitive, which is settings.sensitive. Okay. If it's true, it's gonna be false. If it's false, it's gonna be true. Let's create our options here. Let me check first. If I click, as you can see, it's gonna be red. Okay. What about our options? For each option, we are gonna have an SVG. Let's create the first one. We'll have here our SVG. Again, I'm gonna copy and paste. I forgot to add them inside this SVG folder, but after this tutorial, I'm gonna add this. You can find it and just copy and paste. If the type is original, it's gonna be blue. If it's not, it's gonna be gray. Let's say original. And I'm gonna write here flags item center. Gap between the SVG and text will be 2, and the cursor will be pointer. We are gonna create 2 more, but before, when we click on this div, we are gonna update our type. Let's say handle change type and pass here original. Let's create. I'm gonna copy this. Create one more function. It's gonna be handle change type. Here is gonna be type original, white, or square. And this time we are gonna update our type. Okay, let's create the others. I'm gonna get this div, create 2 more. Here is gonna be white. Here is gonna be square. Let's change our SVGs. The square one and the white. Let's see. Okay, awesome. When I click here, as you can see, it's gonna be selected and our image is white. If I click, it's gonna be square. We can change this sensitive. And right now, if I save, I'm gonna close my model again. On click, and I'll say on close. Just like that. And right now we can do exactly the same thing here. When I choose the square, it should be square. So I will copy my class name here. And inside the share component, I'm gonna paste it inside my Next.js image. Okay. So right now, when we click on this button, we should also send our settings, and using the type and the sensitive field, we are gonna update our file and upload it like that. So I will come here. And inside this action, remember, by default, it's sending our form data, but this time we are gonna get this form data, and I will say share action, form data, but also the settings. Let's get this param. It's gonna have the type, and sensitive. Right now, using this type, we can update our transformation. Let's write it here. I'll say const transformation. In any case, its width will be 600. And I will write my condition here. If the settings type equals square, we are going to change the aspect ratio, and it's going to be 1:1. In this case, if the width is 600 pixels, the height will be the same. And I will say if settings dot type equals white, the aspect ratio will be 16:9, so our image will be wider. If it's not, we are not going to change anything because it's going to be our original image. Let's pass it here. Just like that. What about the sensitive field? To store that field, we are going to be using a custom metadata, and when we fetch our file, we will be able to see that data. To do that, I'm going to open my dashboard, settings, media library, and here is metadata, and I'm going to add a new one. Let's say sensitive, field name will be sensitive, and its type will be Boolean. And by default, it's going to be false. Let's say mandatory and submit. Right now we can use our metadata. After this transformation, I will say custom metadata, and inside the field name, which is sensitive, and its value. Okay, I'm gonna save. Let's try. Let's choose an image. This one. Let's say white and sensitive. I'm gonna save and post. And our image is here. As you can see, this is the file ID. We can store this in our database. And after that, when we fetch our post, using this ID, we can fetch our media and we can see all the details of this file. Let's try actually. I'll open my post component. Let's say async const get file details. It's gonna be an async function. We'll pass here our file ID, which is a string, and it's gonna return a promise. Let's actually open our documentation. It's inside the API asset management. Using this ImageKit API, we can get all the file details passing here our ID. Of course, we are using our backend. Let's choose here Node.js. And as you can see, we are going to be using this function, pass here our file ID. If there's an error, we are going to console log. If not, it's going to provide the file details. Let's copy here. It's going to be a promise, and I'll say return new promise, resolve reject. I'm going to paste my code here. Remember, in our actions, we created our ImageKit instance, but we also need this here. So instead of writing this again and again, let's create a file that we can use this ImageKit. So inside the source directory, I'll say utils import ImageKit from ImageKit. And I'm gonna cut this and paste here. And I'm gonna export. Let's use it here. I can delete this. And import, just like that. And I can do the same thing for the post. Okay, let's close here. And fix here. Of course, we are going to add here our type. But before, Let's get our details. I'll say const file details. I'll say await and our function. And we are going to pass here our file ID. Let's copy this and paste and console log. And pass here our file ID. Let's see. I'm gonna refresh my page. And as you can see, our file is here. And inside we have the custom metadata, which includes our sensitive field. And it's true. We have the image URL, thumbnail, and the file type. Let's create a type using these object fields. I'm just gonna get the necessary ones. I will say interface or type, file details response. I'll say width. Here is gonna be height, file path, absolute URL. What else? We are gonna get our file type. And let's say custom metadata. And it's gonna include sensitive field. I'm gonna delete this. And let's make this capital and use it here. Okay. I will say if there is an error, reject. If everything is okay, I will say resolve. By the way, this console log is here, not here, because we are not returning anything. But this time I'll say resolve and result as file details response. Okay, there is no warning or error. This time, when we call our function, we are gonna see this console. I'm gonna save, refresh, and it's here. And right now we can use this image inside our component. Instead of this dummy image, I'll say if file details exists, create here an image, and the path will be file details, file path. I'm gonna write a description. It can be empty for now. I'm gonna give my sizes. Remember, inside our details, we have the width and height. We can use it. Just like that. I'm gonna save. And as you can see, our image is here. And its size will be what we exactly want. And one more thing, I'm gonna add here a class name. And I will say if file details dot custom metadata sensitive, it's gonna be blur LG. If it's not, it's gonna be empty. There is a typo here again. Let's fix it. Let's check. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna refresh. And as you can see, our image is sensitive. Of course, you can create here a container and make that container sensitive. But anyway, I just wanted to show you how to use custom metadata. And what about videos? We can also upload videos. When I click here, we can choose any file type, but we want to accept only images and videos. So I will come here inside my file input. I will say accept only images and videos. I can close this console here. And right now we can see our media type. I will say console log media. I will open my console, choose an image, And as you can see inside the file, we have the type and it includes this image text. But if I choose video, it includes this video text. So using this type, we can decide whether it's an image or a video. So I will scroll down and I'm going to change this condition. I'll say if media exists and its type includes image, and if there's an URL, we are going to show our preview image component here. And also, after this, I'm going to create one more, and this time we are going to check if it's a video or not. If media type dot includes video, and if there's an URL, I'm going to create a container that includes our video, and the source will be the preview URL. And we can show the controls. And also, I'm going to create here a button that we can remove our video. I will say position absolute. In this case, the parent should be relative. I'm going to give its position, top 2, left 2, background will be black, background opacity. I'm going to give the text color. Let's give a size. I'm going to center everything inside this container, just like that. And it's going to be a circle. Our button is here. Actually, it can be on the right. Just like that. And I will say cursor pointer. Font will be bold. And the text will be small. Okay, awesome. So when I click, it's going to update our state. We are not going to have any media anymore. So I will say on click event, set media, and it's going to be null. Just like that. Okay. When we choose any image, we can edit, and also, again, I can do the same thing. I will copy this and paste here. Just like that. Okay, awesome. But remember, inside our action, we use this transformation for the image. So again, we should check our file type. I will write here a condition. So I will say if file.type includes image, we can use this transformation. So we are going to destructure this. And if it's a video, we are not going to change this width because users might want to see the video full screen. So if I make this 600 pixels, it's going to be much smaller. To prevent this, we are going to apply this transformation for the images. And also we are going to need a video component. Let me close everything. Remember, we created our image component here. We are taking the path and the size. We can do the same thing, but by default, we can give a fixed width and height. By the way, I forgot to show you low quality image placeholder. Let's open our post again and comment this out, or just delete this class name for now because I want to see my image. And if you use low quality image placeholder and say active true, and the quality is, let's say, 20%. So basically it allows us to see the low quality version of this image while it's still loading our original image. So if the user's connection is slow, firstly they are going to see the low quality of this image and after the original image. So if I refresh my page, as you can see, at the beginning it's going to be blurred and after the original image. And it's great because it's gonna increase the page speed and also the user experience. When they scroll down, they are gonna see the placeholder for each image and after the original one. Of course, we are using the same image. We cannot see right now, but anyway, it works. Okay, this time we are gonna create the video component. I'm gonna open my documentation. Let's come back. Inside the Next.js documentation, I'm gonna click on rendering videos. And as you can see, we are gonna be using this video component. I'm gonna copy this, open my menu, inside components, video.tsx. I'm gonna create my component. Remember, it should be a client component. And paste my ImageKit video component here. Let's use it and get our props, path, and the class name. Let's create our types here. The path will be a string and the class name is going to be a string, but of course it's not required. Let's use this type here and pass our class name and the path. You don't need them. Let's close this component here. And again, we are going to pass our URL endpoint as we did for the image. I'm going to copy this, paste here, just like that. Of course, you can also use the ImageKit provider and pass here your URL endpoint. But anyway, we are not going to use this component again and again. We just define here once, and we are going to be using this video component for the videos. Again, we can pass our transformation. You can give any size. I'll say 1920. Of course, it's going to be width. And the height will be 1080 pixels. You can also add here the quality. Let's say 90%. Just like that. We can show the controls. Let's use it. Inside the post, I'm gonna write a condition if there's a file details and also if its type is image. We are gonna show this image component. If it's not, it's gonna be a video. Our video component here. And again, we'll pass the path. Just like that. And I will do exactly the same thing. I'm gonna copy this and paste. By the way, I can open this class name. I will save. And right now we can upload a video. I will open my console. This is our image, but this time I'm gonna choose this video. I will post. Okay, there's an error. Because as you can see, we can pass only 1 megabyte to our server action. If we are just using form text inputs, it can be 1 megabyte. But since we are uploading a file, we should increase this size. Let's open the documentation. Inside the configuration, we should add our body size limit. I'll open my config file. Let's actually choose here. And we have the image object here. And right after that, I'll say, let's say 50. I'm gonna save, close here. And let's try again. I will refresh my page. Of course, we are not handling this error, but in the next tutorial, you will see how to use action states, how to handle errors, how to make CRUD operations. But for now, we are just uploading our media. I will come here. Let's choose this one. I will post. Let's come back. As you can see, the file type is non-image. Its size And let's use this file ID. This time we are gonna fetch our video. Of course, in the next tutorial, here is gonna be dynamic. And as you can see, our video is here. Okay. What else we can do? Let's close here. Open our video component. And I want to show you one more thing here. We can add a text or logo on our videos. Let's see how to do that. Okay, it's not here, but we can find it in the image manipulation, I think. You can use it for the images also. Okay, it's here, overlays. As you can see, we can add overlays for the images and videos using this raw param. So basically, inside the transformation, we are going to add another object, and we are going to write here the layer type, layer text. The layer input will be your website name or whatever you want to write. You can add the font size, and at the end of this string, you should add layer end. Let's use it. I'm gonna copy this, paste here, text, let's say Lama Dev. I'm gonna increase the size, let's say 100. We can also give a color, let's say white. I'm gonna save, let's see. And perfect. Our text is here. Of course, you can also add your image. Instead of this text, you can add your image path. As you can see, you can rotate. You can change the position. This is how you can add your image. Instead of text, just write here image, input, and the image path here. You can give it size. And as you can see, you can also add any shape. And for the position, let's search for overlay, images or videos. You can change the position using these params. You can do the same thing for the images, but I want to show my tags only for the videos. If you want to, it's exactly the same. Create another object, row, and the overlay string. Okay, awesome. Right now, I can close everything here. And let's take care of this right bar. Let's see what we have. We have the search input, this explore component, who to follow component, and this footer. And remember, it's gonna be sticky again. Let's open our code, close everything, and open our right bar. I'm gonna create my components. Because they are gonna be client-side components, I'll say search, another, let's say popular tags, and finally, recommendations. I'm gonna save and use them here. Search, popular, and recommendations. And let's create our footer quickly. We are gonna have some links and this text. Let's change the name, date, and I'm gonna create my links. Actually, I will just copy and paste. I don't wanna waste time here. They are gonna be exactly the same links. And let's give our class name. It's gonna be text gray. Text will be small, and I'm gonna separate them. Gap X will be 4, and the flags will be wrap. Okay, what about this container? I'm gonna give padding top, flags, everything will be vertical, gap between each item, and remember it's gonna be sticky. In this case, we are gonna need our position and height, maximum content. Let's open our search component, and here I'm gonna create an image. The path will be icons explorer.svg. I'm gonna give my sizes. And after, I'm gonna create an input, text input. Let's give a placeholder, search, and I'm gonna give my class name. I'm gonna remove the default background, it's gonna be transparent. I will delete the outline, and the placeholder text will be text gray. Let's give our container background input gray. I'm gonna give padding Y, padding X. I'm gonna center my items and give gap between each item. And finally, rounded will be full. Okay, what about our tags? I can close here, open my tags. Firstly, I'm gonna give a padding. Rounded will be 2x large. I'll give a border. Remember, it's gonna be 1 pixel, and its color will be gray. And I'm gonna separate my items. Okay. And inside, we are gonna have 2 sections. Let's say trends and topics. But before them, let's create here our title. I'll say, what's happening? Let's write it like that. I'm gonna give my style. Text will be X large, font bold, and I'm gonna change the text color. It's gonna be light gray. Just like that. What about trends? Actually, let's say trend event. We are going to show an event based on the location, and that will include an image and the description. I'm going to pass my source. It's going to be general event.png. We can give any size. Let's use transform. I will say true. Of course, we need to add a parent here. Remember, it should be relative or absolute. I'm gonna give my size. Let's say rounded X large, and overflow will be hidden. Okay, perfect. Let's add here a title and a description. Of course, here is gonna be flex1. So it's gonna fit inside our container. And inside h2 tag, let's write any random event and a span. I'm gonna give my class names. They are gonna be gray, but this is gonna be small. And for this title, font will be bold, and the text will be text gray light. Let's make them horizontal. Here, I'll say flags, gap between items will be 4, and perfect. We are gonna have 4 topics. The first one, let's separate our items. Item center, justify space between, and inside, I'm gonna create a span, and it's gonna be the category. And let's create our image. Icons, infomore.svg. Let's give our size. Okay. I'm going to change this style, and after that we are going to add our category topic, trend topic. I will come here, change the text color, gray light, and the font will be, let's say, bold. After that, I'm going to create one more div. I will say h2 tag, OpenAI, the trend topic, another span, and the number of the post, 20k posts. Actually, we don't need this div. I'm going to change the color, gray light, font will be bold, and here text will be gray and it's going to be small. Okay, let's make this small also, and it can be darker. I'll say gray, and the text will be small. Okay, it's much better. So let's create 4 more. I'm gonna copy this, create 4 more. Of course, you can change the titles, but they can stay. We are just designing. And after that, we can take care of the recommendations. I can close here, open my component. We are gonna give exactly the same border and space. So let's open up and copy our style. Just like that. And we are gonna have our user cards. I'll create a container that will include our user image, user information. Let's see, actually. Here is gonna be a container which includes this image, title and handle, and on the right side we are gonna have this button. By the way, at the beginning this Explorer was different. It was exactly the same here, but they updated, I think. It's not trend topic anymore, it's Explorer, but anyway, it can stay. Maybe we can add this link. I will come back and create here a link. Let's say show more. Its color will be blue. I will say href. It can stay like that for now. Okay, awesome. Let's do the same thing here. I'm gonna copy this link, paste here, import, and let's create our user card. Firstly, remember, we are gonna have another container, which includes our image container and the text container. And inside this text container, we'll have the username and the handle. I'll give my style quickly. It's exactly the same, just gray color. And it's gonna be small. Text will be MD, it's gonna be bigger, and the font will be bold. Let's create our image here inside this container. I'm gonna add my avatar here. John Doe. I'm gonna add the size, transformation, and the parent will be relative, rounded full, and the overflow hidden. Of course, we are gonna need a size. Just like that. Let's make this horizontal, as we always do. Flex, item center, and gap between items. And also, I'm gonna separate this container and our button. Justify between, let's say, image and user info. After this, we are going to have the button. And I will say follow. I'm going to give my paddings. Font will be semi-bold, background white, text black, and rounded will be full. Just like that. Let's create 3 more items. I will copy this, paste 2 more times, and awesome. If I scroll down, it's going to be sticky. And what else? We can create our profile page. I will click here. And we are going to have here the back button, the username, and we are going to have here the user information. By the way, I'm not following anyone. Let me know who to follow. I just want to start using X and start sharing more content. And anyway, let's start. Firstly, we are going to create a dynamic route. As you can see, this is going to be a unique username. To do that, inside the app directory, I'm going to create a new folder. And since it's a dynamic name, I'm going to write it like that, username, and inside page.tsx. Let's say user page. Firstly, we are going to have the title, profile title. I will close this menu, and inside I'm going to create a link and pass here our icon. Icons back.svg. I'm going to give the size and h1 tag, and this is going to be the username. Let's see. I will say test, and they are here. Let's take care of our top container. I will say flags, item center, gap between our icon and tags will be 8. It's going to be sticky, top 0, because here, when I scroll down, as you can see, it's sticky, and also there is this blurred background. To do that, we are going to be using backdrop blur. Let's say MD. I'm going to give some padding, Z index, and the background will be black. Of course, we should add here something to see. Let's add an image. It's just a test. You can give any size. Okay, it's not here. I think here is different. Okay, let's create 2 more. And when I scroll down, as you can see, it's sticky, but its color is too dark. Let's change here. I'm just gonna use black here, but reduce the opacity. Okay, it's much better. Let's make this bigger. By the way, here is gonna be dash. Font will be bold. And the text will be, let's say, large. Okay. And after that, we can start creating our information section. I'll say info. I'll create a div. Firstly, I'm going to create a container for my cover picture and this avatar. We are going to use them together. So let's say cover and avatar. I'll say relative, and the width will be full. And firstly, we are going to create our cover container. Again, width will be full. And I'm going to be using aspect ratio here. And the width will be 3 times bigger than the height. Let's add our image. Actually, I can move this here. Let's remove the others. I will say cover. And after that, the avatar. I'm gonna create one more. This time it's gonna be avatar PNG. By the way, let's change this height. It's gonna be 200, 3 times smaller. And here, I will say 100. Let's, by the way, use transformation. If the image is big, we are gonna transform them. And for this one, for this avatar, size will be smaller, just like that, 6 times smaller. And aspect will be square. Let's make this a circle, rounded and overflow. And I'm gonna give some border. Let's say 4. I'm gonna change the background color. If there is no image, we are gonna see it. And I'm gonna change its position. To do that, let's use absolute. And left will be 4. And I'm gonna center this vertically. It's gonna be in the middle of our cover. So I will not use this relative anymore. The left will be 4. And I'm gonna be using translate Y. And it's gonna be in the middle of our container. Just like that. By the way, let's change this border. It's gonna be black and perfect. If you want to, you can increase this size. It can be 5. And let's add here our links. After this div, I'm gonna create one more div. And we are gonna have some icons. Let's give our size. I'm gonna give a border and center my icon inside. So we can use item center, justify center. Rounded will be full. I'm gonna give a border gray, let's say 500. And the cursor will be pointer. And inside, we are gonna have our image. Icons more.svg. I will write my sizes, 20 pixels. Okay, it's here. I'm gonna fix my image and I'm gonna move it to at the end of the container. Let's add here dot and I will say flex. Width will be full. Item center and justify will be end. So they are gonna be at the end of the container. Let's give a gap and padding. And awesome. Let's create the others. 2 more. It's gonna be explore. Here is gonna be message. Just like that. And the follow button. Let's give a class name. I'm gonna give paddings. Background white. Tags black. Font will be bold. And the rounded will be full. Okay, awesome. And finally, we can add our user information here. After this div, let's say user info or details. I'm gonna give a padding. Items are gonna be vertical and gap between each item. Firstly, we are gonna add our username and the handle. H1 tag, let's say the username and a span. As we always do, we are going to add here our gray color and text will be small. And this is going to be bigger. 2x large and the font will be bold. Okay, We can add here our description. Let's create a p tag, Lama Dev YouTube channel. And we are going to add here other details like job, location, and the date. Let's separate them. Text will be text gray. And its size will be smaller than the base size, let's say 50 pixels. I will create my image, icons, user location .svg, 20, height 20. Let's create a span. You can write in a location. And let's create one more. To do that, I'm gonna wrap this with a container. Separate my items quickly. And create one more. And let's say date.svg. 2021. Okay, awesome. If you want to, you can add different items, but it's enough. Let's add the followings and followers. Just like that. And after that, we are going to add our posts. After this user detail, I'll say followings and followers, flags and gap between items. And I'm going to create my first container. It's going to include the number and followers. Let's change the style. Text gray. And it's going to be 15 pixels. And for this one, the font will be bold. Let's separate them. Okay, but it should be inside our information because we don't have here a padding. Just like that. Let's do the same thing for the followings. And let's add our feed here. We can use our feed component. Of course, in the next tutorial, we are going to fetch all the posts that belong to this user. But for now, it can stay like that. So we finished our profile page and the home page. So let's take care of this post component. Because if we are in the profile page, we'll be able to add post. So I'm going to come back, close everything, and create my model component. But there is something important here. Let's see our example. We are on the home page, and when I click on this button, as you can see, the background is still home page, but here we change our URL. Or on the user profile page, this is my profile. If I click here, again, the URL is compose post. We have here our model, but in the background, we still render our profile page. And when I close this model, again, it's going to change my URL and we are going to see our home page or the profile page. But how we are going to do this? To do that, we are going to be using Next.js parallel routes. Let's open our documentation. I'm going to zoom in. And here, find the routing and parallel routes. As you can see, it allows us to conditionally render different pages in the same layout. To do that, we are going to be using our app router and create our slot. And inside, we are going to write our nested route. So we are going to have two folders, remember, compose and post. And inside, we are going to create our model. And using our layout, we'll be able to render our model whenever we want. Let's create, and you are going to understand better. By the way, these slot names will not be visible on the URL, so you can name it whatever you want. As you can see, slots do not affect the URL structure. They are just like the group routes. Let's create. Inside the app router, I'm going to create a new folder, let's say model. And inside, I'm going to write my nested routes. Compose, post folder, and inside, let's create our page. I will create my component, let's say post model, and let's use this model inside our layout. I will open my layout, create one more item here, and write my type. Again, it's going to be React Node, and I'm going to use it here. I will save, and let's create our model. Firstly, this is going to be our overlay, so its size will be full screen. Let's remember again. When I click here, as you can see, it changes the background. This is our overlay, and here we have the model component. To do that, we can use absolute positioning. It's going to be full screen. I will give my positions top and left. I will give Z index because it's going to be top of everything. Let's give our background. I'm going to paste my color here, something between black and blue, and I reduce the opacity. You can give any color you want, and I'm going to center everything inside this div. Let's say justify center. I'm not going to center vertically because, as you can see, it's not centered. Let's create our model. We'll have the top section, which includes this button and this link. In the middle, we are going to have a container that includes this image and input. And at the end of the div, again, we are going to create a container which includes our icon and this post button. Let's create two more. So inside the top, I'm going to create my close button. Let's say X. And I'm going to create a div. I'll say drafts. In the middle, we'll have our image container. The path will be our avatar. I will give my sizes and transformation. And after this image, I'm going to create a text input. Let's give a placeholder. What is happening? And finally, I'm going to create the icon container and a button. And for the parent, I'm going to give this black background and some padding, rounded effect. Let's say PY and PX. Rounded will be X large. Background will be black. And let's give a width for now, so we can see better. The height will be maximum content. And I'm going to give a margin top. As you can see, it starts here. And let's try. I'm going to add my link here. Let's open the left bar. And right here, compose and post. I will do the same thing for the mobile button here. And there is one more thing. Inside my model, I'm gonna create a new file, and it's gonna be default page. And by default, we are not gonna render this model, so I'm gonna return null. Let's create a component, default, and I will return null. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna click. Of course, our image is absolute. Let's open our model and give here a parent. I'll give some size. It's gonna be rounded and overflow hidden. So it's gonna be a circle, just like that. Again, let's try. We are on the home page. When I click here, it changes the URL, but we are still on the home page, and this is our model. Okay, this is how it works. And when we click on this button, we are gonna close our model. To do that, we can use router hook, const router, use router hook. That comes from Next navigation. And make sure that your component is a client component. Just add this directive. And let's create here a function. I'll say close model. When we click on our button, we are going to run our router and the back function. So we are going to change the URL. So let's say on click event and our function. When I click, it's gone. Let's test it for the user profile page. I'm gonna click and it's here. Okay, awesome. Right now we can give our style. Let's give a cursor here, cursor pointer. I'm gonna separate my items, justify between, and the color of this text will be blue. And the font will be bold. Okay, what about this center div? Let's give a space. On the top and bottom, I'm gonna give padding. I'll say flex, and the gap between our image and text input will be 4. What about this input? Class name is gonna fit inside our container. The background will be transparent. I'm gonna delete the outline, and the text will be large. Okay, and what about here? If you remember, on the home page, we have the share component and our icons. Let's add them. I'll open my component. Let's scroll down. Get all these images. I'll also add this image SVG. Just like that. One more. And image SVG. Let's separate our icon div and the button. Flex item center, justify between. In any case, I'm gonna give a gap. Flex will be wrap. And I'm gonna give a border. This border. So let's say border top and border gray. Finally, let's give a padding so we can see our border. And for each icon, we are gonna have a space. Again, flex and gap and flex wrap. Let's see. And perfect. What about this post? Post button. Class name. I'm gonna give a padding on the Y and X axis. Text will be black. Background will be white. Rounded. And the font will be bold. Where is this padding? Oops. Padding y will be 2, and awesome. Again, we can create our form and do exactly the same thing as we did for the share component, but it can stay. It's just a design. So right now, you know how to use parallel routes. If you want to, you can visit this documentation and see the other examples. But for now, I'm gonna close here. And one more thing, when I click here, we should see our post. Let's see the example. If I click, as you can see, the username, status, the post ID, and we see here our post and the comment section. So inside the username, we can create this route and this dynamic route, post ID. So I will say status, post ID, and page. Let's say status page or post page. Let's try. I'll say test, status, any number. Okay, it's here. Let's create our top section. We'll have this arrow and post. Firstly, I'm going to create a div. Remember, on the profile page, let's just say test. We have this top section and its position is sticky. And when I scroll down, there is this blurred effect. We are going to do exactly the same thing. So we can copy from our user page here. I'll say link and image, but this title will be post. And after that, we are going to call our single post component. Let's get back. But as you can see, they are not vertical because it should be outside of this top section. Okay, awesome. And finally, we are going to add here our comments. Let's create our component here. Comments.tsx. And there's something important here. If I open any comment, let's open one of them. And as you can see, each comment is a post. Again, it opens the username, status, and the post ID. So we can create here some post examples. But before them, we'll have this comment form. So let's come back and create a div. Again, it will include our image and the input and a button. Let's say reply. Let's give our class name quickly. It's going to be exactly the same. Font bold, BG white, text black, and rounded full. For this input, let's delete the default background. It's going to be transparent. I'm going to delete the outline. Let's give some padding, and the text will be X large. Of course, it's going to fit inside our container. As we always do, I'm going to be using flex1. And for this image, I'm going to give my sizes. It's going to be a circle. Our image shouldn't be overflowed. And for this image, let's import first. I'm going to give my path. My sizes. and transformation. Let's add our component here. Inside the post, I will add my comments component. And let's make them horizontal and give a space here. I'll open my component. Here is going to be a form. Let's say flags, item center, justify between. In any case, I'm going to give a gap. Let's add our padding. Let's save. And I'm going to give here a placeholder for this input. Post your reply. Okay, we have our post and the comments, but we are going to make some changes here. In our example, as you can see, our main post is different than these comments. So if we are on the single post page, our texts will be a little bit bigger. And here we see the avatar first and the other items later, but here all our items are vertical. Let's do that. I'll open my post page, close this menu, and I'm gonna pass here a prop. Let's say type, and it's gonna be status. Let's get this prop. I'll say type, the type of the type. It's not required, so I'm gonna put a question mark, and it can be either a status or comment. Right now, I can write my condition. If the type is status, we are going to change our post a little bit. Firstly, let's change this post content. I'm going to comment this out. And again, it's going to be flags and gap 4. But this time, we are going to check our type. If it equals status, the flags will be column. Okay, right now we can hide our image here. Instead, we can use it here, like in our example, image and the user information. So I will come here, and for this avatar, I will say if type equals status, it's gonna be hidden. Okay, it's gone. And let's add it here. This time it's gonna be hidden if the type is not status. To do that, I'm gonna create here a div that will wrap until this p tag. I wish I did this at the beginning, but anyway, I hope it will not be confusing for you. So its size will be full, flags box, and justify will be space between. Basically, we are going to separate our user information and avatar and this button. Let's add our avatar here. I'm going to add here a link because when we click here, it's going to open our profile. Let's import and give our href, and it's going to be the username. Let's just say test or Lama Dev. I'm gonna wrap my avatar and top information. Let's create our avatar just like that. Move this top here. And this time, I'll say if it's not status, make this hidden. So I can delete this div and move my user information here. Let's see first. Okay, they should be horizontal. Let's give a class name here, flags and gap. And if its type is status, these items will be vertical. Let's see. Username and the handle. And as you can see, date is not here. It's going to be hidden. Instead, we are going to show it here at the end of the div. So again, we are going to need a condition. I will say if type equals status, the flags will be column. I'm going to delete the gap. It's going to be 0. And items will be start. Okay, but let's delete this date. I can wrap my entire span and say if type equals status, actually if it's not equal status, show this span. Okay, it's not here, but our items are here centered. I said item start, but it's still centered because of this. Let's write here important, just like that. I can decrease this handle size, it's too big. For the comments or homepage posts, it's okay, but for the status, we are gonna make this a little bit smaller. So I'm gonna choose here, write my condition. If it's status, text will be small. Okay, what about this p tag? Again, it's gonna be bigger. As you can see, this text is bigger than the others. So I will come here. And again, type status, text will be, let's say, large. And also, when we click on this text, we should open our status page. href, the username, status, and the post ID. For this tutorial, it can be anything. Of course, in the next tutorial, it's gonna be dynamic. Okay. Let's add our date here. After this link, I'm gonna create a condition. If it's status, create here a span and write here the date. Just like that. Let's change the text color. Text gray. Okay, it's here. Of course, it should be after media, before this interaction. And perfect. As I said, here can be a little bit confusing because I should have done this at the beginning. But anyway, just small changes. If you watch the entire tutorial, it should be easy for you. We just removed this avatar. Instead, we redesigned our top section. We have the single post page, the user page. We have here a parallel route, another page here, and the home page. That's all, I think. We finished our UI design, and in the next tutorial, we are going to create our backend. We'll be able to create a new account, login, add a new post, add a media, and we'll be able to follow and unfollow other users, change all these user details, and we are going to add these interactions. Let me know what technologies you want to see in the next tutorial. I hope you liked the video. If you learned something new today, please like the video. Don't forget to follow Lama Dev's social media accounts, and don't forget to follow me on X. As I said, I'll share some React and Next.js tips, maybe some small tutorials. And that's all. I hope I'll see you in the next tutorial. Goodbye.